Summer term 2024. This is brand new episode 1 of the Teacher Squad podcast with me, Heather Wright, and the very marvellous, wonderful Jane Considine. What are we going to be chatting about in this episode, Jane?
Well, it's slightly different, and I think I've broken my printer because the amount of pages it's got. We're looking at the subject review by Ofsted, and I'm going to specifically be talking about 3 small words in there that are really important for our speaking and listening futures.
Ooh, and guess what I've thrown in there, Jane? There's a poll and a big call for some big changes.
You're good at your polls, aren't you, babe? I'm going to be talking about non-fiction writing, how we've got to teach it better. It's got to be cleaner, more concise, because this is the writing of our lives.
And I'm going to throw in there some niceable grammar for language purists to balk at. Oh my crikeys. Shall we jump right in?
Yeah. Let's see if we can keep people interested with this one, Ever.
Challenge accepted.
So, Heather, this is a little bit different this week. We sent people off to do some homework, and actually, we had a bit of heavy homework. And this heavy bit of homework was, please go and seek out the latest Ofsted research and analysis report telling the story, the English education subject report. Now, it was an absolute beast of a document. It is enormous, a bit like English itself, really. And I'm sure, like me, you see on your travels that in primary schools they've created a writing lead and a reading lead because the subject is gargantuan. But this report was a bit like that as well. It was very overwhelming, wasn't it, Heather? What was your feelings about it?
Well, yeah, and I had a bit of guilt. We'd been going, oh, do your homework, as if it was some light, little word search puzzle. You'll enjoy this in your Easter holidays, guys. Bit of colouring in. And it ain't that, is it? And we're highly aware that teachers are spinning many, many plates and they cannot let go of any. And when a document like this comes out, who has the time to read it? And, it's a massive document. There's a lot in it to ponder and digest and process. And actually, you can't just skim through. You can't just, read it once and that's it. You've absorbed it. It does take quite a lot of brain space.
Yes.
So I feel tired, Jane.
Yes.
And listeners won't know, but we normally record in the evening, which is my time of day. I'm a bit of a night owl. That's when I come to life. We're in the morning, and who knows where this will go. I have my cup of tea, but I drink decaf, so that's not going to help. So hopefully I haven't used up all my brain space on this document, and I will have something useful to say. I wonder, Jane, in this, because there's so much to it, and close to both of our hearts, really.
Yes.
That there are going to be things in here that educators disagree about, and I wonder whether there are things that you and I disagree about. Listeners, we haven't discussed this yet. We've kept it for the podcast, so everything that you hear is going to be a bit raw and real, isn't it? So
yeah,
I'm
and
really
us on
intrigued.
the edge of that. Yeah, we don't do practice runs. We don't check out what each other is going to say. It's always sort of on the edge of our thinking, and I think it's great that it's like that. A bit of backstory about the Ofsted report. I did just want to say it's research and collection of inspectorate thinking based on 50 schools, 25 of them being secondary, 25 being primary. And we all know that inspector visits last for 2 days, sometimes one, depending on your category. And is that, we know, well, is that? I mean, well, I don't even know why I'm posing a question. We know that's not long enough to deeply understand a school. So actually, there are conclusions here that are made where you just say, really, is that going to be the essence of what's happening? Do we truly know what's going on? Sometimes pithy summaries can be made, and it's like, is there depth of understanding about that school and that situation? So yeah, and the other thing I just wanted to say in relation to this, almost where primary has gone with subject leaders being kind of wearing a reading or a writing hat,
Mm,
it then just leaves us, well, who is wearing the speaking and listening hats? and and that is coming big and strong through the report. And we know, nationally, we want to promote oracy, and we've got lots of kind of a tsunami of research actually about oracy,
mm,
and its critical purpose to unlock children as better readers and writers, and how they interplay with
absolutely.
both of those areas. And actually, are we missing a trick here? Or is it the oracy within the reading curriculum? Is it the oracy within the writing curriculum, and oracy across the curriculum? But if you don't have somebody flying the flag for it, you and I know, and I see this on my travels, drama conventions are going down. When I
Yeah.
asked ECTs and NQTs, there are 80 recognised drama conventions. How many are you using? And teachers also say hot seating, role play, freeze frame. You might get a conscience Sally, but it there is this sense that does it have high enough value at the moment?
Can we come to the ECTs then? Because that was something that stood out for me. The This kind of report, like you said, it's not every school. It's not massively in depth in every school. It's kind of a bit of a litmus test. It's just a sense of, and it tells us that we've still got 1 in 4 kids leaving primary not at the expected standard for reading, which obviously impacts them when they go to secondary. And teachers might be looking at the report and think, well, who is this for? When you get right to the bottom of it, if you've made it all that way, and
Yeah.
it's got some recommendations, hasn't it, for subject associations, and then
Yes.
this little recommendation at the bottom for initial teacher training
Yes.
institutions. And actually, for me, that's where we've got to go back to. That's where a huge amount of this information has
Yes.
got to go right back
Yeah.
to the start point.
Yeah.
And like you said, we need a reading lead, a phonics lead, a writing lead, a speaking and listening lead, because the subject is so big,
Yes.
so complex, so important. And in the same sense, we need to give it that time, that space, that value in the training stage, so
Yes.
that we are sending out teachers who are ready and have the situations. Um, so for ECTs was something that stood out for me, that we've really got to, instead of fixing the dam at the end, we've got to go right back to the source of the river kind of thing.
Yeah.
um
And I'm going to just say in relation to that, when you track the international testing through PISA, of the most successful schools with English and maths, the schools that come out on top, Finland, Singapore, Shanghai, Japan, the investment they provide at teacher training level is phenomenal. There is very well thought national guidance on research, evidence based led training, and there's this shared sense across and in some of these places as well, they've limited where you can go, and the professional bodiness of it is turned right up, in that actually all of these places are going to teach new teachers phonics in this way. We're going to teach the evidence base on um, reading training in this way. And there's a sense of, rather than it's like, well, you might go to Newman College and get trained in Birmingham, or you might go to, Liverpool and get trained here. And it's a bit kind of a bit more ad hoc, what
Yeah.
the syllabus is going to be. It's not like this in the high performing educational places around the world. There's a real sense of what is the provision and what is the curriculum. And I think that is not strong
Yeah.
in the UK, I'm
I think we're
afraid.
on the beginning of that journey because,
Yes.
like, reading the report, I felt a little bit like, well, do you know what? We probably could have written that ourselves, Jane. The things that we've
Yes.
talked about,
Yeah.
phonics is strong. And I think phonics is strong because it is strong in initial teacher training now as well. And
Yes.
there's a security in that,
Yeah.
saying, this is what we need to do.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, we can have other conversations about which schemes are everyone's having to do, and
Yeah.
funding and all issues around that. But aside from that, we know that phonics is pretty much across the board, and it's happening in training. It's happening in those early stages in school. We can see from the report that it's talking about, okay, we need to be sure that further up in key stage 2, our teachers are secure on that for those kids who haven't made the progress at the expected kind of timing, and key
Yes.
stage 3.
Yes.
But we it's still kind of, we've just done that bit. That's the bit of the
Yes.
journey that we've done.
Yeah.
And then, we've talked about this on the podcast. It felt like we had our finger on the pulse, Jane. Yeah,
Yes.
it felt like,
Absolutely.
yeah, we've talked about fluency
Yeah.
and what real comprehension is. So, although it was, a long, tricky read and lots to unpick, it felt like,
We had a good
yeah,
measure of where we were. And I
yeah,
think most schools do.
yeah,
I mean, there is a statement in the report that says this: once pupils are able to read accurately, schools are less clear about how to build fluency and comprehension.
mhm,
And I am going to put in the show notes guidance from the Education Endowment Foundation about what we should be doing with fluency and comprehension. And I think it is good that Ofsted are trying to push more meaningful and engaging approaches to the teaching of reading comprehension. And, I would say you're on the side of reading for pleasure. I'm on the side of reading comprehension, and both of our work is critical, because if you're not motivated to read and excited about reading and developing your who you are as a reader and how you identify as a reader, then and you're not going to get unlock kind of the breadth of reading. But we also need to make sure children are reading in a way um they know what the hell they are reading. Do you know what I mean? What's going on? So yeah, so a lot of the work we're doing is around kind of, and both of us care about fluency, and we both share that department, because fluency is critical. It needs to be from a kid's perspective, it needs to be smooth for you, effortless, smooth. They need to do lots of paired practice to improve that
yeah,
smoothness. And then they need to be able to perform and project it out. Um, and they need to have good understanding of stress and intonation and expression. And and you and I don't know if we've ever articulated this clearly, but we both care about the 3 Ps. If they got good pronunciation, phrasing, prosody, all of this has to come together. Um, and I don't think schools have a clear sense about how they're building fluency, and that is multifaceted. That is really, they can do that through teacher modeling, pupil modeling, older pupil modeling to younger pupils, and lots. And schools should have a strong, where they can. And I know we're losing Mrs. Gibbs at a rate of knots, but we do kind of need a, a strong pre-teaching part of reading fluency, where oh, the little blessings get a run in with Mrs. Gibb, so that when they go, right, uh, you know, Stella's going to have a go now at reading paragraph 3. She's practiced with Mrs. Gibb. She's certain. She knows how to pronounce things. She's had to go at that smoothness, so that when she showcases, she's ready to showcase. And like we can help unlock fluency doors for all children,
Yeah.
but that has to be well thought through in your curriculum. There mustn't be embarrassment handed over to kids who aren't ready to read aloud and things like that. So there's a lot of
No.
work to do, because we also know that kids who aren't enjoying or engage with reading, the gap hardens and widens as they get
But
older.
as you said, we're not on different sides, are we, when we're shouting about those different aspects? They're actually interwoven together. And it was good to see in the report that schools are striving for a reading for pleasure, for want of a better phrase, culture. They
Yes,
are they are focused, and working on that. And it feels like I've been shouting about that for a very long time.
yes,
And
babe.
you know,
You said to me, "Look at me grey hairs this morning." That's because you
I
really.
don't point them out,
I'm
Jane.
sorry,
Most
honey.
people are not watching, they're just listening. Now they're thinking about me grey hair sticking out my part at the front.
Oh,
It's bad
life.
enough that I look like I've got a proper morning face. Go, oh. But yeah, we've been shouting about that for a long time, and people have been working hard on that. And there are some
Yes,
schools that are like way ahead on the journey, but we have to
yes,
acknowledge there are still some who are just dipping their toes in. Really, they're not really there,
yeah,
and that's frustrating in you know English education, that
yeah,
we're a bit slow. We're a
yeah.
bit
I
slow.
think,
We have research there,
yeah,
and what is it that makes us slow? Is it our stressed teachers, our overworked teachers? Is it
yeah.
lack of funding? Is it is it just a combination of those things? But
Toxic management, all of
there's a
the
whole
above.
plethora of things, isn't it? And
Yeah,
and really, we and on next week's episode, we're going to be talking about the other homework, the Darren McGarvey program, the state of education. But just stealing something from there, he said something about, like, in commerce, or if there's a piece of evidence, boom, they act on it quickly. Let's go, let's make
yeah,
change. There we
yeah,
are.
yeah,
And in education, what is up with us?
yeah,
We've actually, as a profession, got our heads round and understand the whole evidence informed kind of mindset,
yes,
and but we've just got the mindset and not necessarily all of the action. And when I say these things, it's
yeah,
not every school.
no,
This report's like a sample, and
yeah,
whenever you come to these things, you've got to reflect on, this is not, I don't know, as a teacher, sometimes we're so over observed and scrutinized
yeah,
and disrespected in society a little bit, that we become a little bit oversensitive, and we read these things and go, well, I'm doing that. We do that. That's
yeah, yeah,
we get a bit tetchy,
yeah,
and forget that there's a spectrum here.
yeah,
Look at where your school is on it,
yeah.
and think about
I
moving forward.
I also think as well, I mean, it's a shame in many ways that this is an Ofsted report, because I think there'll be a lot of people who are so angry and won't necessarily want to engage with it. But I
Yeah.
did just want to celebrate here, and which is what you've already touched on. I'm just going to read it out loud, because I just think it is, this is definitely kind of celebrate good times. Come on.
Come on.
Many pupils are positive about their experiences of English, including reading for pleasure. Some pupils are keen to recommend books to each other and talk about opportunities to do this at school. In some schools, pupils talk with confidence about the books they are reading independently, while in others, they are far less confident and have few favourite stories or characters. Pupils value story time and being read to. However, these opportunities are sometimes lost because of competing priorities, even though the evidence suggests that it is valuable. But I mean, I know that's classic Ofsted. They give you something good with a bit of a what a
And then
bad.
we rip it away. Don't think you're good, guys. Keep on your toes.
But broadly, I do think schools have done that really well. And I was just reading an article, and obviously you know John Biddle really well, who is one of our good practitioners out there with Reading for Pleasure. But even he talks about if you're not careful, it can become initiative overload. And
Yeah.
when you're trying to promote Reading for Pleasure, really think about how you're supporting the teachers in your school, about what's the big stuff, what we're working on, and have we
Mm.
got capacity to introduce something new. Almost like go gently and take everybody with you. So
I think
yeah, I think
that's, you've touched on it there. That is one of the big things that is a hindrance and a barrier, isn't it? That quite often there's been a shiny magpie kind of thing. Oh, look at this, do this. And it is an initiative, as opposed to this is a piece of evidence that we take to our setting and our provision, and we
yeah,
navigate through it for our pupils, and what we've got in front of us.
yeah,
Jane, do you think we can dare step into writing? Because I think the reading aspect of it was mostly positive. Yeah,
yes,
we're doing really well on phonics,
yes,
and we're doing well on trying to engage pupils in reading for pleasure. We've got to move into fluency and comprehension.
yeah.
But then it was like writing. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Before we go to writing, I think we should
Excuse me.
just say one other thing that came through the report. And I thought this was quite interesting, that texts within our curriculum should be chosen on literary merit first
Mm,
and foremost, not linked to other curriculum areas. And if you think about primary with their kind of cross curricular approaches and having themes, I think when you are working a theme in Key Stage 1, there's so many good books, let's say, on plants and gardening. There's
mhm.
so many high quality. But I think sometimes when you get into Key Stage 2 and you're trying to run connected curriculums, it's not always there. And all I wanted to say is big up Emma Carroll. Thank goodness for giving us quality historical fiction, because until we had things like The Secrets of the Sun King, some of the naff Egyptian story links we were trying to make, it's just like, oh, well, this is not working. So I do think you and I the books that are winning awards, the books that are in the empathy lab, the books that kind of have powerful, relevant meaning for today's society. We have to always have that responsive aspect to our reading curriculum,
Yeah,
coming
and
from.
if teachers could just choose and have access to books, then I think that would shift a bit quicker. But
Yes.
the issue, um, you know, schools may have put reading spines in place, invested money in class sets, and it's not just a thing that you can quickly change, is it? If that,
No.
it requires funding, and it requires knowledge. One of the things I love doing with Reading Rocks is when a school come to me. Sorry, it's just this the morning. I think I'm a little bit allergic to it. Um, um, the is when a school comes to me and they say, this is our planning overview, this is our long-term curriculum, and they give that to me, and they want books matching to that, mostly because, like you said, they want books across when they're doing their science, their geography learning, whatever, and books that pupils can access of their own accord to further, and I
But
love
high
putting those things
quality.
together, high
Yeah, but
quality, and I've got the
yeah.
time, and dare I say, the expertise to do that,
Absolutely.
and help schools with that. Teachers, schools are time tight, so it is enjoyable to do that. But as you said, when you're thinking about teaching the English curriculum, high quality text is really important.
Yeah,
So, but we need funding. That is ultimately, schools need funding, and ring fence funding. I think,
I
like
think so too. And
sports premium, we need it.
look at that data where, the majority of teachers are dipping into their own purse to fund their reading corners. It's just like, that is not good, is it?
No.
It needs definitely ring fencing. Yeah, writing, what a nightmare.
Brace yourselves, writing. Come on, up and
Uh,
at 'em.
yeah, not going so well, um, in
Awkward.
terms of lots of aspects, really. But what I do think is a strong message coming through from the Ofsted report, and I do agree with this message, that there needs to be more focus on non-fiction texts and the writing of non-fiction. And why? Because that is the modern daily writing mode. It is the language of the internet, it's the language of the news, it's a live communication. And we've got to kind of walk a balance, as it were, in our English curriculum, where we want children to be excited, switched on writers, creative story writers, but we also need them to be very well organized, clean, and concise writers. And that
Mm,
clean writing is actually very hard to teach, but children need to be very good at that. And um, you've probably heard me chutter on about this before, but we know, in terms of national weakness, children are appalling at cohesion. And sometimes as teachers, we kind of oversimplify that, and it almost is packaged as story. If you've got first, later, after,
mm,
you can join up your stories, you can join up your recounts. But actually, non-fiction writing needs more clever teaching around kind of introductory sentences, conclusion sentences, and stepping the reader with us. And a lot of cohesion would be inordinately improved by teaching it through sentences. What is, it's not about like one word, a word is going to save you. It's like, what is a cohesive sentence that can line up this next bit of information, or draw this bit of information to a close, or link us onto the next bit of information, you know
yeah.
um, and
Yeah.
that needs to be well thought through. For example, just saying this sort of thing, this is a question that's intrigued and mystified scientists and explorers for decades. Children need help with that sort of construction. Almost like, don't bombard the reader with another fact, kind of just sort of cohesively sort of let that settle, but navigate them through it. And that needs some very well thought through um, English fiction teaching, and
Yeah,
there's more work
and
to
it's a
do.
real sense of audience, that, isn't it, and purpose
Yes.
of the text. Something that stood out for me was that schools were not necessarily showing the value of English in its own right to pupils, and I think
Yes.
touching on that non-fiction, and why do we need to write? Why giving pupils a chance to find their purpose in writing. Look, we
Yes.
need people who are going to write stories. We need
Yeah.
people who are going to be poets,
Yes.
creatives, and give us all of that. The arts are so important, but we also, a lot of pupils are going to end up writing for real solid purposes, non-fiction, like you say, and having
Yes.
those opportunities to show them
Yeah.
is vital. I'm so glad you said talk about the sentence, Jane.
Yes.
Focus on the sentence because for me, in the writing, and guess what I did? Of
What?
course, Jane, I had a poll. Of
I love
course,
you. You're like the pole queen.
of
If you were not
course.
following Heather on X, I mean, that woman is just polling all over the shop. I love you polling. Good girl.
Because when I was trying to gauge different people's opinions
Polling.
on this thing, I thought I'd throw a poll in. But people were chatting as well. Lots of people kind of conversing, and the writing bit is what really stood out.
Yes.
And the poll question that came about from these different conversations with experienced teachers, ECTs, some teaching consultants. One teaching consultant said that this report was ammo for change,
Ooh.
which I thought was really, and it was around, right, it was the writing bit that was really important. So the poll was, do you think we need a change to the national curriculum,
Yeah.
reading, writing in particular?
Yeah.
Uh, and that was it. And at the moment, there's 709 votes, which is, pretty decent voting.
Yeah.
84%
Yes.
said, yeah, we need a change. And that's what
Yes.
people were talking about and screaming about,
Yeah.
is that we go too fast and there is too much grammar content, and we are racing ahead to that whole big piece of writing
Yeah.
way, way, way too soon. And two aspects of it. One, well, all of it's close to your heart, Jane, but the transcription, the spelling and the handwriting, we're not doing that well enough at all. And we're racing ahead, and we've got this, we've got to get them writing. This is where we've got to get them to. And then comments about external assessments unhelpfully shape the curriculum is
Yes.
a big thing. And I
Yeah.
think for a lot of people feel like we're battling the national curriculum instead of it leading the way into how we navigate progress with pupils. We're kind of fighting our way through it. And yeah, I mean, but some people were commenting on saying, "Oh my goodness, I think this is needed, but it fills me with utter dread." Those
Yes.
teachers who were in the classroom in 2014, national curriculum came out. Holy moly, what a nightmare and a big, massive change.
Yes.
It's They're talking about reading spines in place and trying to shift those. When schools are just going, "Oh, we feel like we've got our head around this curriculum and this is what
Yeah.
we're doing." And then you've got people like us going, change the curriculum.
Yeah.
But in reality, it needs lessening. We've
I
got
think
to get this
yeah.
focus on the sentence so that kids really get
Yes.
what a sentence is.
Yeah.
How many times in a Key Stage 2 classroom have you seen kids just missing out capital letters and full stops, tell them to go back and edit, and they haven't got a clue, and they
No.
just pepper them. There is, and then they're trying to pop in all these complex sentences and things that we've taught them about.
Yeah.
Sorry, I
I
was getting a bit high horsey and soapbox there, Jane. Do
No, no,
join in.
it's fine. And what I did wanted to say is a few things there. I mean, the word spelling gets 23 appearances in that Ofsted report,
Did you sit
and
and count them all?
I really did. And I don't
You
even like maths.
saddo. Spelling,
But
spelling. Look, I can see you there, Jane, with your little tally chalk. Oh, look,
oh,
it's another spelling. I'm on to something.
I'm onto something here. But what we've got to be dead careful about, and where the science of writing leads us, is um, I'm worried by this report because there is a recognition that transcriptional skills like spelling and handwriting and punctuation are poor. That the response from schools might be almost it becomes almost like transcriptional skill lessons. But we know that transcript, because writing is about orchestrating all of these things all at once. You need to know about the big stuff, your audience and purpose, um, what the genre is, what you're trying to shape up, what are those sentences that you're going to be constructing, and thinking about your grammar within that, and your handwriting and punctuation. Everything's all entwined. You can't separate transcriptional skills away from the craft of authoring. You've got to integrate it all together. And this is where the problem is, because we've got to kind of consider all of that, and within that, sort out handwriting, spelling, and punctuation. Now, one of the things I think that has caused, and there's a big hint in this document about that they're particularly worried, the inspectors, weren't they, about uh, uh, there was stuff not being identified and kids keep rehearsing these mistakes. And I think this has been created by the SDA guidance on defining independent writing. And I know it's only just disappeared for year two, but that idea that they have to edit all by themselves, and that has sort of permeated everything. They edit all by themselves. And the other guidance from the Education Endowment Foundation about written marking, that written marking is unproductive. So what you've got is this kind of double problem, which is like, oh, if they're supposed to be editing by themselves and I'm not supposed to be doing written marking, and it's almost like this kind of muddying of sort of errors just kind of just hang there, sort of undealt with. But it's almost, we need a re-clarification that everything we do in teaching is imbued with promoting high frequency word spellings, guidance on how we're doing certain joins so that we've got a nice fluent handwriting style. It has to be sort of meshed and grafted into everything we do, but somehow that message is got really sort of confused through guidance on written marking and SDA guidance on independence, I
But
think.
it's practice and rehearsal. It actually is the same issue as reading, is that
Yes.
fluency of writing is where the crux of the problem is. We can't comprehend properly because we're not fluent enough. We
Yes.
can't, I love that, orchestrate. We can't orchestrate it all because we're not fluent enough
Yes. Yeah.
in certain aspects of it. And
Yeah.
it's about that slowing down and that practice of individual, and then bringing together and the time and the space, not, like I
And
said
on
before,
that,
not to rush ahead.
that's right. And on that practice of the individual, I actually do think every child almost needs a postcard stuck in their writing book that they can flip up, that has two things on it, basically. One of the things they have on it is a sentence is written by them that reads like this: "This is my very best handwriting, full stop." V1, version 1, and the child is against themselves. And the teacher goes, "Look at this handwriting today. This is better than that. You can move up to version 2." And that I know what their very best handwriting is, and I'm aware of it for them, and can help them. Like, actually, I just want you to look at this join. I want you to think about your join like this. And also on that postcard is a focus 5 spellings that I'm aware that they're working on. This is how you spell because, not BECOS. This
Oh,
and this,
sorry
like,
about
these are
that.
your focus. Oh, bless them. Because love it. All
Love
right.
it.
Because I'm gonna go to the shop because. Yeah. But these are your 5 spellings, and I have a deep knowing and noticing. We talk about necklaces of noticing. I know you. I know where you're at, and I'm aware of it, and I want you to know I'm noticing, and I'm looking,
And
and I'm
that's adaptive teaching, is it? And that's
yes,
where the teacher's brain space should be, on knowing the pupils, and
yes, yeah.
yeah, that's
And
where
it
it should
just, I
be.
like, people have got like, I know this from my emails, like independent writing, meeting SDA guidance. It's like, listen, they don't have to meet this really harsh independentness till we're handing in our folders for moderation or our books. It's just like we've got to teach them. Like we've got to teach them stuff. It's just got a bit. It's just
We've
it's
yeah, that
yeah.
external assessment unhelpfully shaping the curriculum, I think
Yes.
that stands for
Yes.
reading and for writing, and I think we've
Yes.
got to, as a profession, we've got to move away from that. It's come from pressure above,
Yeah.
but we until schools, and there will be schools, there are many, many schools who do not
Yeah.
shape their curriculum around
Yeah.
assessment. And
That's
those are
right.
the ones that are doing well and even better at the assessment. But it takes a confidence, it takes
Yes.
leadership that doesn't feel squashed. It feels empowered
Yeah.
to do that kind of thing. Can we
Yeah.
talk about grammar, Jane?
Yes, of
Sorry.
course we can. You can talk about grants and cows comes home, but before you do that, I am just going to say this that, and I've said it once, but I'll say it again. We must not respond to this report by separating out spelling, handwriting, and punctuation. It has to be dealt with. We've got so much science, you know. Kim et al. It's probably your best summary document, 2021, kind of goes back all through the ages to Shanahan, Tugninsky, Andrews, Quinn, Bingham, all going back. It's got to be dealt with within, like we are trying to write a postcard. We are trying to do this, and we're going to do it, timely and deeply, but it's got to be dealt with real reasons to write, not kind of cutting it off into pie chart segments, and that'll do it because they'll never get that sense of the orchestration. So, yeah. I've said it, but I'll say it again. Yeah, grammar. Go on, babe. You could grammar me anytime.
Talking about like external assessments and grammar
Yeah,
and the and a Key Stage 2 SPAG
yeah,
assessments.
yeah.
It is that necessary? Are we
No,
what c c
no.
I kind of wish that the report would have said something a bit more about
Direct.
that,
So do I.
and
It's over, surely. I mean,
why
it's not.
why
It's
why are
not.
we
So,
do when we're talking about kids who know the purpose of English,
yeah,
have an understanding of what that means to them in their life, therefore a purpose and a connection with it.
yeah,
When we're talking about them being able to write for different audiences, different reasons,
yeah,
adequately and then effectively,
yeah,
do they really need to be able to identify which is passive? Do they need
yeah,
to? Yes, we want them to understand standard English
yes,
and put that into their writing,
yeah.
but I feel like we waste so
So do
much
I.
time,
Yeah, I agree.
so much time
Yeah,
teaching them how to identify it. And I don't have I love grammar. I don't
yes,
have a problem
yeah,
with teaching the names of parts of speech,
yeah,
and
yeah,
when those things are appropriate.
yeah,
We're writing about this type of
yeah,
piece of writing, and that this part of speech is really useful for it, and when you
yeah,
pop that in there, it
yeah,
modifies it and it makes it more effective about that. And giving
yes,
them names of parts
yeah,
to jigsaw together
yes,
is good practice,
yeah,
it's effective, and it enables them.
yeah,
um, we will have some children who will suck up everything that they read, and then they will just breathe it out in beautiful poetic sentences. But
yeah,
for many, the nuts and the bolts and the cogs. But for me, I think that could be a huge shift if that part of the curriculum was
yeah,
just
yeah.
lost, because some people were commenting that when they get to secondary, that nothing further happens with that. There's no progression in the sense of, and
No.
then we have a grammar paper for. We don't
No,
need it.
no. It falls off the edge of a cliff, doesn't it? And, all of that came about because of Michael Gove imposing his idea of what, education was. And the SPAG test goes against the grain of the science writing. Go back to Deborah Myhill's work about grammar in context. We've got to go for the big stuff, and within that, there'll be certain grammar devices, techniques that we can use to be better at writing. Yeah, I mean, the SPAG test is outdated and ridiculous and isn't, as you say, part of a broader progression, continuity and progression of their sort of learning journey as sort of understanding grammar. It just seems utterly
Can I add
sidelined,
some light
pointless.
relief to grammar?
Oh, go on then, babe.
I
If
brought
you're
a
going to tell us
book.
what subjunctive form is, then
No.
I'm up for listening. I'm only joking.
The subjunctive form. No, I'm not. I brought for you a picture book. Now I'm excited about this because as this podcast is going out, I'm actually going to be taking the author Sarah Tag home around lots and lots of schools with this book. It's called We Are the Wibbly, A Tadpole's Tale. It's absolutely beautifully illustrated by Jane McGuinness, and it was recently shared in the Observer reviews, and I thought you'd like this. So, more laughs come courtesy of Sarah Taghome's We Are the Wibbly, a hilarious look at the life cycle of frogs, narrated by one egg happily enjoying a peaceful life with his friends in the Wibbly, or frog spawn, until, oh my crikeys, as he puts it, they all start transforming. First it's tails, then they swim in, and before long they're actual frogs. Jane McGuinness's charming illustrations evoke a splashy underwater setting for the cute, astonished-looking tadpoles. Language purists may balk at Taghome's zany use of words, but you'll be hard pushed to find a more joyfully engaging insight into animal biology for the very young. So, can I give you some of that zany going against all the rules of grammar, because I absolutely love it, and
Yeah,
sometimes
do it.
breaking the rules is a bit of fun. So those listening, we've got a beautiful illustration of all these little tiny dots in the wibbly, which is the frog spawn, and it is in the first person from this little tiny frog spawn's point of view. I is eggs. I is egg friends. We are the wibbly. We float and we are all very relaxing. It is niceable. What? What is the happening? My egg friends! They have gone all very longish. Is I longish? I is not longish. I is still doing relaxing floating. What? What? I is longish. What is even more the happening? Oh my crikeys! They is bursting out of the wibbly. No, don't burst out of the wibbly. Now I must do bursting out of the wibbly. I don't even want to.
I'll tell you what, if you read that to year 6 before the SPAG tests, they'll all failed. Do you know that? Do you know
It's
the book
gorgeous though, isn't it?
is gorge? Do you know the actually it made me think of kind of morphemes, with like your niceable, and your affixes there, thinking about what words make it and what don't make it into the Oxford English Dictionary. My daughter, who's now 21, I taught them sex education through books, and you'll know the book "He Laid an Egg," and it wasn't until she was 16 that she just needed to clarify, was sperm actually the size of a tadpole in that book? Because that was a bit frightening if it was. Like, maybe.
Massive bullets. Boom. Boom.
Maybe, babe. Don't know. Just one
Oh.
other thing I want to talk about in terms of the Ofsted report, and it's small, but it's beautiful, and it doesn't get a lot of. It's kind of almost you could miss it, and I just want to put this sentence up in lights about speaking and listening recommendations. And one of the recommendations in the report, I think, is so important. And I do think moving forward, we need to think about who's leading on speaking and listening, who's leading
Mm-hmm.
on drama conventions that can be deployed in all kind of areas: English, history, geography, science. But this comment of the new direction for speaking and listening needs to be explain thinking. And explain your thinking is amazing in maths. You know, you've got 72, Ella, you've got 72, Nimrat. Can you tell me how you got that answer? And we get a window to their thinking in their
Mm.
mathematical explanations. But do we get enough explain your thinking in English? Now, I know we don't, because when we've read a sentence, Nurse Betty, who had candy floss hair, scooped Sophie back into bed and firmly tucked her in. What are you thinking as you read that? Explain your thinking to me. Is it logical? Are you drawing down meaning? Sensible? Tell me what you're thinking now. Tell me what you're thinking now as you read that paragraph. Tell me what you're thinking now at the end of with that cliffhanger. Tell me what you're thinking. Explain it logically and explain your thinking. I can't shut up about big thinking bubbles, making your thinking visible. That's what teaching and learning is. All of that hard thinking, we've got to make it obvious, and how our thinking connects with your thinking, and how we build it into something better, because we've got a shared thinking happening in this classroom. Um, those three words, explain your thinking, as the beating heart of what your speaking and listening curriculum needs to be doing, is I think a bit buried in that 100-page report.
It's a bit long, isn't it? Yeah. Thinking about thinking is where it's at. It's the clever bit, isn't it? I
Yes.
kind of just jotted in summary at the end of reading that. Actually, we talked about where are you up to on this spectrum.
Yeah.
I just thought, as a school, it's about audit really, and thinking: do we value talk?
Yes.
Do we overuse test type questions? How are we developing fluency? How
Yes.
do you select books to teach with? How are you showing the value of English for its own sake?
Yeah.
And what are you doing about spelling and handwriting? Those are kind of my standout summary things for a teacher, a school to take away
Yeah.
and reflect upon, because that's what these kind of documents are about, really. It's like, where am I up to?
Yeah.
Where do we go next?
Absolutely. And I know also, obviously, because of my hotline, that the FE are currently going to do the sister document to the reading framework about what the next things we need to be considering, which actually tend to give more kind of guidance on the back of Ofsted reports like that. So that is in the mix, and we should be having that in the next 9 months or so. I also know that the Education Endowment Foundation are pumping a lot of money into kind of writing projects, in terms of those that are effective, that are making progress gains. So I think writing most definitely is going to need a lot of focus from schools. So sort of getting ready for that is really crucial. And personally, if I was a head of a school, I think, if you haven't got it already, a new kind of speaking and listening cross curricular role needs to be considered, because everything in reading and writing, as we know from the famous quote, floats on a sea of talk. And
Mm.
I think there's been too much assumption that we're getting that right, and it needs a bit more exploring.
Amazingly, Jane, we've gone pretty much a whole episode without mentioning our infamous email addresses. Heather at the teachersquadpodcast.com, Jane at the teachersquadpodcast.com. Don't forget, when you email us, you get one of our exclusive Teacher Squad podcast badges. But coming out of this report and listening to our ramblings and our discussions, which we hope have been vaguely useful to people, if you feel like your school is doing some of those areas well, or of another teacher, a consultant researcher who is doing some of those things well, we'd like to hear about them. We'd like to bring them
Yes.
on
Yeah.
and have a chat. So get tip toppy tappy in, write for a purpose with a real
Yes.
audience. That's us too. Um, there is an incentive. We do believe, no, we don't, in extrinsic motivation. A badge and a whoosh, woo! It would
And
be,
they
it
are
would
better
be,
than Blue Peter badges, I feel, because they're rare. They're rare, and if you get one, you must definitely need to wear it with pride.
and even better if you see someone with one on their land yard. I mean, that's going to be a rare sighting, isn't
Yeah,
it, Jane?
yeah,
But if
but
you
take a
see
photo,
someone, yeah, get it on socials, and then email us and say, "I've spotted one." You
and
know,
then you'll get one.
oh my goodness, the exponential growth is going to be amazing.
Uh,
Ah, hey Jane, I coped with a morning sesh.
I'll tell you what, you were really good. You came into your own. You really did. I mean, you were eating Haribo's, I think, to get
I
you
was
there.
not eating Haribo's. Don't you be telling people porky pies. I haven't had my breakfast yet. I'm going to go now and have some
Oh,
healthy breakfast. No more of those Easter eggs for breakfast. How much chocolate
yeah.
have you eaten, Jane?
Well, there are certain brands that are gorgeous, aren't they? The Lindt. Oh, that's a bit good, isn't
Oh,
it? Oh,
that was my daughter's big egg, a big lint egg with lots of those. She hasn't happened to share any of that yet,
yeah,
but
that's the best one,
there's
surely.
been lots of egg, we've had mini eggs on brownies, mini eggs on Rocky Road. There's been lots of baking.
Uh,
So
that's
leave,
cute.
come out the other side of the holidays slightly heavier, but with a chocolate smile. Everyone's happy with a
My
chocolate
little
smile.
nephew, who's 2, had a popping candy egg that he didn't know was popping candy, but he just couldn't believe his mouth was like wide open and you could hear it, and he was just so confused. It was just the best faces. Everyone, oh,
Popping candy's brilliant. Doesn't matter how old you are. Popping candy's
no.
brilliant.
Oh.
Oh,
Well,
well,
thank you, Heather. Always a pleasure.
yeah, and same back to you, Jane. Should we say
Yeah,
goodbye
yeah. So it is big love from
from me?
Heather. From Heather.
Oh, we've done all that right. We can't. Yeah, and it's Heartbursts from her, Jane. We love
Yeah.
you lots. Thanks for listening.
Yeah. See you soon. Bye.